And welcome to the Happy You're Here podcast. In this show, we talk about tools, techniques, and ideas to help you live a more fulfilling life. Now, this episode is going to be way different than all of the other episodes that I've released so far, and it's because I recorded this podcast episode, I recorded this interview before I really had an idea of the format of this show. I had another idea in mind, and I ended up going in a different direction, but I still think that this interview is really insightful and interesting. I tried to cut it up into two different short pieces, and it just didn't work. So I'm just going to release the whole thing here, and you can listen to it or you cannot. If you want the really short episodes, this is not one of those. And if you like longer interview episodes, well, you're in luck. Here is a longer interview with Simone Salis, and he is now a friend of mine from Chicago. He has a show called 2,343 Conversations, where he interviews people and the idea is that he's going to have that many conversations over his lifetime, and knowing full well that that's a pretty impossible number, but it kind of gives a bigger mission to aim for, and that's his whole purpose there. But he's a really thoughtful guy. He's been making content on the internet for a really long time. He used to make political content in Italy, and I think it's really interesting and kind of informative about the way things are going now and the way we are consuming media and people are creating content, because everyone that's if you're sharing something on social media, you're creating content. We want to blame the news media for misinformation and for being negative, but sometimes you got to look in the mirror and say, am I choosing to consume this? Because whatever I'm choosing to consume, they're going to keep making. And also, what am I putting out there? Am I adding to this negativity? There's a difference between, not looking away from the negative things and kind of giving more fuel to the fire. And I think we do a lot of that. And Simone talks about that in this episode and a lot more things. So hopefully you enjoy this. He's a really insightful guy, like I said, and kind of funny. It's a nice, relaxed conversation between the two of us about the state of the world and the consumption of content, a lot about content and content creation. And I think that you'll find this very informative and interesting. So thanks for listening. I'm happy you're here. Enjoy. I kind of want to dig a little bit into how you got to where you're at now, and if there's any kind of pieces of that puzzle that might help other people. That basically the idea behind this podcast is speaking to more or less our younger selves. That's for me a big part of it. Is what did my 22-year-old self really need to hear to get me to where I am now? Which obviously it happened eventually, but it would have been nice if it would have happened faster with less mistakes.
What would I tell to my 20-year-old self? You are not the most important part of the equation, which I keep fighting with, and I'm sure I'll keep fighting until I'm around.
Do you feel like you've made progress on that?
Partially. Something. Sometimes I believe that I made more progress than I actually did. Sometimes I don't recognize that I made I don't
progress?
give to myself. And but partially, eventually you get there. It starts that you look for meaning, and eventually there is less of that looking for meaning and more trying to build it for someone else.
That's interesting that you said that. Dig into that a little bit. For someone else. That is not what most people say.
Right. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still for my. It just changes the game. The game at first is I need recognition, and then it's I'm never gonna be satisfied with that. It's in the same way that some people, I see some people. If you make $20 million a year, say, I don't know who, but if you do, what more of why do you need more? Just in the same way, I think the same if it's true for recognition, at least in my case, and for meaning. I started studying industrial design. I dropped out of that in school, and I started to write and to make satirical videos in Italy, where I'm originally from. And this was in the early days of YouTube and Facebook. It was literally 2008, 2009. The equivalent, the fake equivalent of money for younger people is views and that kind of attention. Yeah. So I got into that game, and that game allowed me to do many things that I loved. I was hired by a newspaper. I started to work for radio, and then I did for years for the public radio there. But eventually I realized that it was, I don't want to say meaningless, but it it doesn't have an end.
Yeah.
It doesn't have.
Yeah, it's a treadmill.
It's just more
Hedonistic treadmill, but it's a different thing than like physical pleasure. I mean, it really is just massaging your ego, like that attention.
It is.
If that's what you're doing it for. If you're doing it to try to gain more attention for a cause or a mission or something, that's different. But obviously when we're younger, we don't usually have that on our mind. It's usually like, this just feels good and I want more of that. Especially when you're doing, like, as I did the same thing. I was doing YouTube, I think 2007. I was making videos in like 2004. So like that was before YouTube was even around.
Yeah.
And same kind of thing. It's like I got like a little itch of like, wow, 1,000 people. That like blew my mind. I was like, imagine if I was in an auditorium and 1,000 people watched one of my videos. Like, that's crazy.
You start to picture I remember thinking like, as the numbers went up, eventually private broadcasts started to ask me and other people I work with to make those videos for them, because that translates to advertisements, to ads for them, so to money. But you start to picture like 50,000, that would fill up this square, and then but then eventually, it became, not because I'm amazing, but because I started to work with great people, it became at some point numbers that make you drunk a little bit on these things that don't matter.
Yeah, I had a couple. I was doing video game videos before that was like, before it was cool, because I'm hipster.
Because you were cooler before people were cool.
Actually, it was really dumb because I stopped like right when that took off. But some of those videos I had one that was, I don't know, now it's at like 6 million or something, which is absurd to me, and it's like so embarrassing because it's my like 14-year-old voice, whatever. But like still, it's, even now I sometimes will go back and look at that video just to be like, yeah, it's a lot of views.
It
feels good. But it's like, what's the purpose of that? Like if it was a video that I was spreading some kind of message that I felt like was going to help people, and that got 6 million views, and it's like, there's more than just an ego itch for that.
Or or done consciously. I don't think there is anything bad in that at all. Like,
no, I don't think it's bad. I don't. But it is unfulfilling, is what you were saying.
It depends.
Eventually.
So what I would tell to myself is like, don't get lost in thinking that is the one thing that matters, not just specifically that, but just in general, like, you're not the thing that matters the most. And more than talking,
what does matter the most? Still trying to figure that one out. Just, I know I'm not it.
I think fulfilling what you want without doing it compulsively for reasons that you don't understand. So if you truly ask to yourself, what do I care about? You might not be able to. It might be anything. It might be whatever, fame. It might be money. It might be working on a lifelong project. If that is what you want and you know it, and you do it without worrying too much about what others think, then that's what matters. What matters is what is your goal, what do you want, and the challenge that you pose to yourself with that, because that is another way. I was constantly in a competition with others, and the competition is mostly realized with me. It's how can I get good at something, which doesn't need, it can be a craft, it can be just becoming a better listener, but it doesn't have an extra goal. But that matters the most, because at the end of the day, it's, this is my journey for myself shared with others. But when you look back at knowing that you tried to understand that, it's at least something.
There's an interesting concept I keep bouncing up against it. It's the idea that you can have the same two actions, and one can be unhealthy and one can be healthy based just on how aware you are of that you are doing it, first of all, and also why, but maybe not even the why, but just that you are doing it, because otherwise you're in a programmed state. You're basically running macros on you're running scripts in your brain. That's how our brain works. It wants to run habits, because habitual loops, because it's easier, it saves energy. But when you're doing that, you're not conscious. You're not coming from a conscious place at any point. So if you're doing these acts of creation, first of all, is kind of what you're talking about specifically in your life, and you're doing that kind of just habitually, then you're not bringing your conscious self to those things. You're just,
No, for sure. I was thinking like, now that I do something that makes me a little bit more satisfied, at least on the creative level, I'm doing it consciously and nobody gives a shit.
Well, that is the trick of it. Yeah, you gotta, yeah.
I kind of started to do this thing. I was like, oh, I'm tired of the views and tired of running to the metrics. But then I went the opposite side. It is frustrating
because I've went through the same thing. The content that I create now gets significantly less reach than the things that I used to create. But, and this might just be me trying to comfort myself, the connections that I make through that content are so much deeper than the connections I would make through the older type of content, like the video game stuff, the entertainment kind of stuff.
I think
not that it doesn't have value.
Yeah.
But the stuff that I'm making now, it's like I'm making like actual real connections.
But why do you think it's that? Because I see what you're saying, but I think it's because my attitude is different and I have a different conscience of the work. Not because it's better. I mean, I had chances before.
I don't think it's better either. I just think I think also it's just kind of the subject matter.
It might be better.
Too. Well, and probably over time. I mean, my stuff's worse. Objectively, like I've stopped focusing as much on the technical side of things as I used to. So like in that sense, it's literally worse from a craftsman's standpoint. But I'm okay with that because I put more effort into like the conscious thought behind it and what is the message that I'm putting out with every time I open my mouth, which is like an impossible thing to completely police, right? But it always goes back to that, like, what's the ideal version of you, and always trying to strive towards that, knowing full well that you're never going to reach it, but you'll still be a better version trying to strive towards it.
So that's the kind of thing that I needed to do. It's that you said knowing that, like, you're probably not going to be able to reach it, and that's why I at some point I also changed the name of the podcast, and it went from generic interviews. I was like I called it 2,343 conversations and 43 conversations because if you make the math, if you do the math, if I do one interview per week and I start now, I'm gonna complete it by 2065.
How old will you be in 2065?
I would be, what would I be? I would be 78, 79, something like that.
That's like halfway through your life.
Yeah, right. With all the advancements. Right. So I'll be very young.
You'll be a young man. Yeah.
I'll be
the prime age of 79.
My midlife crisis. But that's the thing, because will I be able to do it? I can't worry too much about it because I very likely, I should not say that I will do it, but I there are good chances that I might not.
Right. Yeah, but it's the act of striving for it, setting very lofty.
Because it doesn't matter. Yeah. I wanted to say, like, if I set this kind of goal,
because if you said myself, like I'm going to do 80 interviews.
Yeah.
Then you complete it, and then it's
awesome.
Like, okay, cool.
I'm done. So in this way, I still have a goal that potentially it might happen. Yeah. But it is very unlikely because there are things some things we have control. For example, I can decide that no matter what, I'm going to be very committed for the next 75 years, whatever. For the next 100 years, I'm going to be very committed. And then I'm in a library and a bookshelf falls off. And
you lose your voice.
Yeah, and I lose my voice or whatever, words. But, and you can't. That is out of your control. So I needed something that gave me a little bit of a long-term goal to achieve for myself. Like, I need to consider why. Like, I want to be better at this. I want to learn concepts. This becomes a little bit of my practice in doing that. And it forces me also to think long-term on very practical things like technology. I can't, I can't. What is an audio form? First of all, I don't care. Like, after I die, you can burn them. The interviews, I don't care. But if I am to do this, what is an audio format that is gonna be playable in 40 years? What is how do I archive this? What is a format for the website that can last at least 10, 20 years with all the change in technology that there is now, adaptive and those kind of things? And so that makes me understand that, like, the importance of social media and other things is relative because they're important in the moment to promote them. But I don't foresee Facebook existing at the same level. It might be more, it might be less, but it might
different for sure.
Yeah, in 20 years.
It's already different than it was a few years ago. And,
you need to think in terms of open standards for the web. Very simple stuff like the transcriptions. I have simple TXT like text files.
Right.
TXT. So that is also an exercise that it's fun to me because I'm super into technology and I do everything I can. That's why I started to work. Like when I made the videos, I edited the videos, I created all the videos. So I take care of, even when I did the radio show, I was very much into the practical part, the public radio of recording.
Yeah, you're clearly things. A very like, it's cool. It's everyone's got to have their things that they're excited about, right? So it's cool that you have that and that you're lucky that you have something that's so like practical and useful for the modern age. I'm the same way. It's like I fell in love with video and filmmaking before video and filmmaking was as big as it is now, and now it's like, wow, I am incredibly lucky, blessed, whatever, that was the thing that I was
enjoying.
That I stupidly went to college for.
True. No, at the end of the day, the reason why I've been able to pay for food and things and changing continents and it's because I've always been producing my own things, and that was incredibly convenient for many publications and other stuff, and even my job now as in marketing. I know a little bit of everything of those.
What I found is that's valuable whatever field you go into. I have a lot of friends that started in film producing. Interesting thing is that skill set jumps. So when I'm like working with someone maybe just starting their life because they just graduated college or they're maybe trying to redirect their life to a more productive path, what I'm usually trying to teach them to do is learn how to create something of value. But once you learn how to do that skill set of creating something, you can pivot and create all kinds of different things, whatever becomes valuable at any given moment in the culture and the economy, whatever. But and honestly, most of it's like an empowerment thing. Would you agree that it's once you've done it a few times, first of all, you have the confidence that okay, I can take an idea and I can break it down into the pieces of the idea and I can
It takes a while.
Action on
it was
things.
A very, very long process for me to be confident.
If you had to switch now to some completely other field, do you feel like you could carry that skill set of being able to kind of be the creating force of something?
I can carry the knowledge and the confidence of having the patience to learn it.
Right. I think that's a big breakthrough. That
I know that if I apply myself long enough and constantly enough, even if I don't notice it, at some point I will be better. So that is what I can carry. But I usually don't carry, and I am doing that now because just a few months ago I was pivoting from video production and radio production and being in front of behind the camera to marketing for video. And marketing is a completely new field for me, including data analysis. And I am learning a lot, but I know that I am not even close to where some of my coworkers are.
Right.
I know that I improved incredibly in the past few months, and I know why and how. I think that once the thing that you can learn from creating and applying yourself is the confidence that you are able to do that, and you're not gonna fail. It depends on what your expectations are.
Well, yeah, and also understanding having a clear picture of any new skill you're gonna try to learn is gonna take time.
Yeah,
because you've seen the other side of some other skill, so you kind of can look at it and say, which almost anyone has something that they've gotten moderately good at, that if they really looked back at when they first started doing that thing, even riding a bike, right?
Here sorry, I was
go ahead.
Here is the thing. The thing that gave me an illusion is that I had something to say very young and not too deep about. I started in political satire. The thing with social media and online media is that you can get a confirmation very fast. You can start with something that is not particularly like well thought or constructed. You didn't take like a month to write an essay or a book or whatever.
Yeah.
You just literally
there's
sometimes
no gatekeepers. There's no one telling you like, hey, you should think through this a little bit more.
And you don't have to. I mean, you don't have to do it with everything. But what it did for me is that I used to write something the day that political news happened. I used to work at night making these animated videos. I would publish them the day after. They would go insanely from 10,000 to 2 million views depending on the video in 48 hours. So you get that kind of confirmation immediately. And that becomes dangerous because it makes you want everything right away. You need a confirmation right away, and then again right away, and then again right away. And you know that is something that gives you confirmation. So you're good at something, but it's very bad if you need to learn, as it was for me, to long-term skills. For example, to apply yourself constantly on something, become better, and be patient to see the results. And sometimes it might be way more subtle than a number going up.
Right.
So
yeah, I think in the self-improvement field. Yeah, right.
You need to learn to suck.
I think in the self-improvement field, that's a really clear thing, is that there's no, like, there are some, like, let's say health, right? There are some indicators you can use, but it's not as clear as, like, a view count or a like count on Instagram, right? And, like, I think that people innately almost are built now or conditioned now to want that. I know I am. I'm, like, you know, I use apps and stuff to try to track my calories and I'm always, like, innately unsatisfied with how many, like, the lack. I'm like, I need to get my blood tested like every week so that I can like track my like zinc levels or whatever, so that I can see those numbers going up and down. And like, really, it's like, does my body feel good? Yeah, really should be the question I'm asking.
It's relearning to live, you know.
Was there a moment or a series, like a time period that you can look back at to kind of pinpoint how you transitioned that you're thinking about that?
Yeah, I was working again. I was very tired. It was I worked in public radio doing satirical songs every day for 2 years. I eventually worked on some TV shows. It was mostly jokes on the news of the day. I worked with a partner, and she didn't do anything technical. So she was just like writing, being in front of the camera, and enjoying the results of that. But for me, was night sleeping for 3 months in a row, like 2 or 3 hours per night, do a whole show, 10 minutes show, daily show on national TV on our own. At that point, I was also involved politically into supporting the people that I believed had a good political platform in my native country, creating videos for them to support them. And I realized at some point that I was very, very tired physically, and I was destroying myself physically to keep this game going on. And I had my body just started to shut down a little bit. I had a few months in which I don't even know how to start to explain it. I had some pain in my abdomen for a few months. Doctors thought it was just, IBD and those kind of things. Then eventually on an afternoon there was an MRI, and I was just having this autoimmune response that looked a lot like Crohn's disease, but it wasn't Crohn. So I was hospitalized immediately, and it turned out to be a super bug. I would just slowly burn myself out. And I ended up not making a good service to myself for not consciously pursuing a goal that matters something true in my life as a long-term goal. And I also realized that I was seeing an early version of what I think is happening now in the US, which is a very radical polarization of ideals. And I was feeling that I wasn't satisfied even with the kind of ethical message that I was doing with my work. Even though it was comedy, it was supposed, political satire, it's supposed to be the hero of the situation, but it wasn't. Because when you create something that is based on the news of the day, and you don't think through it too much, it gets laugh from people that already have an idea.
Yeah, you're
And,
contributing to the echo chamber.
Yeah, that's literally what is happening. You're just like amplifying a message, which
and simplifying, straw manning the opponent.
Sometimes, oftentimes, and this kind of making fun, it stopped being fun for me because the repetition made me see through it.
Right.
So it's a little bit now when you see a late night monologue, I look at it and I go like, I know if I watch Colbert, which I used to love in the Colbert Report, if I watch him, I know what the writers did for him and where this joke is gonna go. Not just him. This is kind of the ready-made viral comedy, and not just comedy, also news media and information. So it was very much contributing to creating that divide. And the moment I realized that, I was like, I took a complete stop from doing that. I decided that I loved comedy and I wanted to learn more about it, but that was not necessarily my path because I just couldn't keep feeding and putting myself into that mechanism. I think that I personally wanted to try to go beyond this kind of mechanical media production situation. And so, the moment that I was able to see that, and now it feels terribly familiar to me because Italy had a real estate billionaire for 20 years before.
Wow.
Berlusconi. So very similar patterns with also the Democratic Party, the left in Italy. So whenever I see this kind of easily taking parts in a very strong way, I understand both of those, but a very, very smart comedian, Michelle Wolf, who was invited to the White House Correspondents' Dinner 2 years ago before they decided that she was too good and so they can't have comedians anymore. Said something very true in the room. She was making fun of everything that needed to be satirized about the current administration and similar topics. But at the same time, she turned to the news media people in the room and was like, yeah, you're laughing, but this is mostly on you.
Yeah.
And she was like, let's never forget that because you are feeding all of this every day. And it's true. If it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah. So, we've both worked in news organizations, so it's I think other people maybe aren't as aware of it, but once that veil is kind of lifted, it's like I mean, I worked for a conservative talk radio station with Rush Limbaugh and Sean Hannity on, and it was the other side. It was but even that, like, it was easy to see because I disagree with them. But then I started looking at the people that I do tend to agree with, like Colbert and people like that, and it's like they're doing the same thing.
Yeah. And they're exceptional human beings. I mean,
and I don't think they're doing it. I don't think that they're doing it out of like some like hateful place or anything. But that's what happens whenever we have a culture that is not super conscious about.
I think most people are perfectly conscious of this if they work in this field.
I guess you can tell that perhaps they're starting to take a little bit more responsibility. Some of them.
Okay.
Slowly, but also. I've stopped paying that much attention to it because I just can't anymore. It doesn't serve. I can't do anything about it necessarily. So, and it doesn't serve me to live a fulfilled life that then I can have an infectious effect on other people. And I notice the people pay a lot of attention to. Not that I think you can or should completely ignore things that are happening on a national stage, but to allow that to consume the majority of your time is kind of a skewed version of reality.
Yeah, it becomes, because
most of those things are barely affecting you.
Yeah,
we want to watch out because they are affecting some people, right?
Well, they affect. I think indirectly they affect us too, or me too.
But there's not a lot that
you can be immune from it.
Yeah, there's also not a lot that you specifically can do right now.
Right.
So it's like, how much of your day should you spend worrying about that?
This is the kind of distinction that I do when I read the news, which is in very selected ways now. I mostly use RSS feeds from essays and blogs and commentary about stuff. So there's very little like high volume news. But here's the distinction that helped me. The news that people want, it's not the news that people need. And I'm working in marketing now, and I could see this before creating comedy videos, but even more now in video marketing. The news that gets mostly published and given to people is what is wanted at the time.
It's supporting.
So so because you are supported by advertising, and to make advertising work, you need eyeballs, and to get eyeballs, you need to give people what they want, not what they need.
Right.
So what people want usually is stupidity. If there is anything stupid, you go like, look how stupid these people are. That's kind of the news of like, look what this person did. Or drama. It can be, it can be violence. It can be money. We're naturally attracted to that. But a thing that works for me, I started to ask, like, how much of this do I need?
Yeah.
How much of this do I want? In the same way that I want the view count, in the same way that I want a new email that says that something fantastic is going to happen, in the same way that I want a notification on Facebook. So how much do I want? How much do I truly need? And how does it make me feel? It doesn't make me feel good. It doesn't make a true difference. And it's actually destructive because I'm supporting a mechanism that goes towards fueling this kind of news.
I think in a lot of ways, a lot of the shifts that people in our country or in our world, the modern world, is so homogenous in many ways that a lot of the problems stretch beyond borders, as they probably should. Maybe, I don't know. Is an issue of conscious consumption versus unconscious consumption, whether that's information consumption or product consumption. It's like. And that's what you're talking about, is being more conscious about the things you're consuming.
Yeah. And that
not only for your own well-being, but also for you as a person voting with your dollars and your attention for what kind of stuff you want created more.
Yeah. And then once you are conscious of what you're doing, which is hard, and I'm still trying to understand how. Once you are, you can do whatever the hell you want. If you want to watch reality TV, watch reality TV. If you want to read
but do it because you like it, not because it's just feeding your base instincts and you're doing
maybe
it unconsciously.
because you like it, and maybe some things might not be good for you, but some pizza.
I still eat pizza.
Some pizza is not good for me. I eat it.
Yeah, but I don't eat it all the time.
And not all the time the bad pizza. Sometimes I need real pizza. Oh my god, I can't sound more stereotypical than this. Olive oil. But yeah, so basically at some point I felt guilty, I was bored. And it didn't make I was very tired, and I decided that no matter what, I wanted to kind of restart and take a look at what matters to me, which I'm finding out, and I'm glad I took some radical turns, including trying to live every day in a country where this is my second language, as you can hear.
If you could leave the audience with one piece of information or thought that you would like them to just ponder and think about.
How often do you eat bad pizza? Do you do it consciously?
And I think we got to go just 1 second real quick. We got to go define bad pizza. As an Italian, I think that you're a perfect person to.
Yes, I am very qualified.
You're an authority on this
given
subject.
My genes. I am the best authority on pizza. Good. If the mozzarella is thicker than. I am seriously thinking about a formula of mozzarella thickness. If you need to chew the mozzarella more than 5 times. This shit is
life-changing stuff right here.
Yes. You don't chew the mozzarella more than 5 times. If you need to chew it more than 5 times, it's not mozzarella. It's American cheese powder condensed on crusts of you know what, I don't know, man. Go to Italy
and compare,
try pizza, then come back and
is
go,
there a good place in America to actually get like
I'm sure there is
good pizza? You just haven't found it yet.
I have. There is a great place in Chicago. It's called Spacca Napoli.
That sounds
pretty
very
great.
Italian.
It is. It's literally the same restaurant that it's open in Naples. Would have not been there, but I've been to the one in Chicago, so it's good. It's good. All I know, it's really good.
All right, so everyone eat some good pizza, some real pizza. Try it if you haven't. I actually have to try it because I don't know if I've ever tried real pizza. And consume consciously. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, sir.
Where can people find your podcast or whatever they want to connect with you via? Your website's gotten easier now.
Sure, now it's easier. Well, it's very simple. It's 2343.org. So 2343.org. And also, on your favorite podcast app, there is, if you want to listen to some more accents. It's just mine usually.
It's a very like endearing accent. You can understand what you're saying very clearly,
but there is some flavor to it.
Yeah, there's Italian pizza flavor.
Yeah, so if you want more Italian pizza flavor, also on your favorite podcast app, just 2343 conversations, and that's it.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very different from the other episodes of the show, I realize, and hopefully some of you like it, and if you're not into long podcasts, there's no way you're listening to this outro. If you are, hopefully that was interesting to you. I find Simone a super interesting person, and I think that conversation was really good. I actually have an interview on his show that should be out now by the time this is released. So if you look up 2343 on Spotify, iTunes, or whatever, you can find that interview. And in it, we talk about a lot of things, but a lot of things about freedom and kind of leading life genuinely. I was in a really good place when we did that interview, and it was actually before I wrecked my car and had to move to a more stable living situation, at least for a while. So it's kind of interesting for me. Was about a year before it got released was when it was recorded. So I've learned a lot since then. I've had a lot of the experiences that I talked about wanting to have in that show happened. So that's pretty cool to see that. So you can check that out at 2343 on Spotify, iTunes, all of that. Thank you again for listening. Happy you're here. Happy you're listening. See you around.